These are violent criminals, so they're not going to go down easy.
ABC Tuesdays.
Let's get this done.
The Rookie is back.
We have 2 new rookies starting today.
Howdy.
Being a cop is stressful 24/7. Every year on the job is different.
And Training Day
We have a serial killer at large.
never ends.
We need an ambulance!
The Rookie. All new Tuesdays on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Entering a realm between the hidden and forgotten, a slipstream caught between realities, a secret museum of the esoteric, the private library of shadows, all taking place in a world forged from mystery and caught between logic and myth. You are entering ParaReality.
Hello and welcome to the mysterious world of ParaReality, a reality where the unknown meets the unexplained and everything is a mystery. I'm Sandman, and I'm your host. Good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining me in this secret bunker for another episode of ParaReality. Well, Mrs. Sandman and I survived the first big winter storm of 2025. We didn't lose power, didn't run out of food, and nothing bad happened at all. We still have plenty of snow on the ground, though, but that's about it. So we came through it, perfectly fine. Now, if you live in the U.S. and were impacted by this storm, I hope that you came through it okay. I know there were areas that got hit a lot worse than where I live got hit. And speaking of hard-hit areas, Mrs. Sandman and I send out positive vibes to the citizens of the Los Angeles area. Man, that place pretty much completely is devastated and will probably never be the same again. I kind of hope that all those homes on the coast don't get rebuilt at all. And the government or somebody can designate those areas as protected public areas, giving the ordinary citizens their beaches back. Wouldn't that be nice? Instead of making it an exclusive playground to the rich and famous, let's just don't rebuild there and designate that as protected public areas. Give it back to the citizens and let the everyday people like me and you enjoy it. Man, that'd be a great thing. Looks like the Illuminati have done their job really well, doesn't it? I mean, how else better to protect their elite members from going down in the Diddy scandal? Now, think about it. Diddy is probably high up in the ranks, right? He's got all this supposed film of all the debauchery that happened, all this evidence, and a lot of people participating in that might have some evidence against him and themselves as well. But let's say the Illuminati don't know who has what or even exactly where it is. Even if you do know who has it, there's probably no way to know all of that anyway. So how do you fix it? Well, you just set fire to the whole damn city. There's plenty of evidence out there that multiple fires were set at the same time across the county. And there's also evidence of who seem to be ordinary people or maybe even homeless people setting random fires in the suburbs and the city respectively. Were these people hired by the Illuminati to do this? Are they some sort of scapegoats of some kind? Or did they, for whatever reason, like sell their souls to the Illuminati so maybe their families can benefit from their criminal conviction? Maybe, they needed money for something and they're, the Illuminati says, if you'll take the rap for this, your family will be taken care of. I mean, it sounds far-fetched, I know, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. But that topic is for another day. I've got other stuff to talk about tonight. You see, all the way back in November of 2024, such a long time ago, right? My good friend Jesse, who owns Danger Zone Video and More in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, agreed to let me set up my podcast in the lobby of his store and host an event where local people could come in and tell me about their personal paranormal stories, whether it's, UFO, Bigfoot, ghosts, whatever. And the event was pretty much a success, and I got several good stories for the podcast out of that. And that's what you're going to hear tonight. From ghostly encounters to disembodied voices, encounters with unknown entities on Native American reservations to stories of the Stanley Hotel, this episode has a little something for everybody. So sit back on your couch or in that favorite comfy chair of yours, wrap yourself in a blanket because it's cold outside, grab that cup of hot chocolate to sip on because tonight is full of spooky stories here on the ParaReality podcast. And to learn exactly what they are, you'll have to tune in, and find out. But let's pay some of those pesky bills first.
Rated RP to M. You're listening to an ad for PC Game Pass. Want new games on day one like Avowed or Football Manager 25? Say nothing if you're getting excited. Thought so. Did I mention legendary franchises like Diablo? And all for one low monthly price? 3 words. We got you. Learn more at xbox.com/PC Game Pass. Some games reference coming soon. Game catalog varies by region and over time. Any questions? I'm just kidding. I can't hear you.
All right. Now that that's out of the way, it is time for what has become one of my favorite segments. I usually do email or welcome new followers or something here on this segment. I've been doing new followers because I've been getting tons of new followers, so I always like to try to welcome the new followers. So that's what we're going to do tonight. I'd like to welcome some new followers of the podcast. And these names are easy, none for me to screw up tonight. I'd like to welcome Collectible Man, Fiona, and this is such a great one, Mayhem Sandwich. And Mayhem is spelled M-A-Y-H-A-M, Mayhem Sandwich. Thank you, everyone, for the follow. If you combine all of my social media accounts, I've got a little over 2,000 followers, probably close to 2,500 followers or so. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're not following me on social media, please be sure to follow me on those socials. You can keep up with all the latest going on with ParaReality. You actually get to see a little bit more behind the scenes of what's going on, a little bit more of the intimate side of the podcast. You get to see Mrs. Sandman and what she looks like and what we're doing on our date nights and where we're going, some of the spooky things that we might go and do. So you get to not only keep up with what's going on with the show, but you, like I said, it's a little bit more intimate of what's going on with myself personally. So if you're not following the show, be sure that you follow it. I'm going to be giving you the deets on how you can do that later on in the podcast. And once again, welcome new followers, Collectible Man, Fiona, and mayhem sandwich. I hope you guys all get something good out of this and find that it is more than just your typical show about alternative topics like this. I like to put my own unique spin on it, and I hope you guys enjoy it and get something out of it. All right. With that being said, let's get right into it. You know, I met so many interesting people at Danger Zone Video, and I had such a really what I thought was a decent turnout for my first time doing something like this. I actually got the idea for doing this podcast episode back when I was in May, when I did the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival in Townsend, Tennessee. And, I brought the podcast there. It was such shitty weather. It was raining. There was mud all over the place. And I had this little 10 by 10 tent, and I had, I had all of this electronic equipment, and there were me and two other podcasters there, and we all had our little tents, and we were all huddled up in our tents trying to keep all of our really super high-end, expensive recording equipment dry. And I set up my shop and just interviewed people who had their own kind of weird experiences, and got a lot of stories out of that. And it was really I got a lot of good response out of the episode. So I thought, if I can do it at the Bigfoot Festival, maybe I can figure out a way to do it every so often without going to a festival. So, my friend Jesse owns Danger Zone Video in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, and he specializes in physical media. He does a lot of VHS tapes and DVDs. He has some Blu-rays in there. He has some vinyl LPs. He has some vintage clothing in there. He has a little bit of everything, just about it seems. But if you're a physical media collector like I am, I come up from that age that we like to own our stuff, and not just have it in the cloud somewhere. I don't trust the cloud 100%, because what if something happens and I can't access my stuff, right? I want to be able to access it whenever I want it without having to worry about, has it disappeared off the cloud, or did I forget to pay my account or something like that, So I'm a physical media guy, and Danger Zone Video and More in Mount Juliet, Tennessee has all kinds of movies on VHS and DVD. Like I said, some Blu-ray stuff and some vinyl albums. If you guys are into physical media, you need to visit Danger Zone Video in Mount Juliet. If you're not in the Nashville, Tennessee, or Mount Juliet area, that's okay, because he does have a social media presence. Now, he's not, he doesn't have a website. He does all of his stuff via Instagram. So just look up Danger Zone Video on Instagram, and he will, if he posts hauls that he gets in almost every day. He's getting stuff in, and he posts pictures of what he has. And if you see something in the picture and you say, I want to own that, you just send him a message and let him know, and he will mail it to you. If you don't see something in the picture, or if there's a particular video that you want, a movie that you want, or something like that, just message him and see if he has it in stock. If he does, he'll mail it to you. If he doesn't, he'll put it on his list, and if he finds it, he'll send it to you. So yeah, if you're a big physical media person, if you like to collect physical media, especially obscure stuff, there's, he does obviously a lot of horror movies and stuff, but he also has a lot of old wrestling DVDs and VHS stuff too. So if you're into vintage wrestling, or if you're into horror, slasher stuff, man, he's got a little bit of it all. So Danger Zone Video and More in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, or you can type in Danger Zone Video on Instagram, and you can follow him on his Instagram account there. So thanks, Jesse and Brittany at Danger Zone Video, for letting me set up in the lobby there and interview all these people, and we're going to do it again, probably sometime this spring. So be listening, and we'll put out some social media blasts and everything. But yeah, we're probably going to do this again this spring. So yeah, we had a great time. So Danger Zone Video and more, you guys, if you're into physical media, check them out. Can't thank them enough. Can't thank those guys enough. Great people over there. So let's get on with our stories. So our first story tonight comes from Alex, and he has a great story about seeing a ghost on a bridge, and he supposedly has a video of this, and I wish that he had sent me the video. We had discussed about sending the video, and he hasn't done it yet. So Alex, if you are listening to this and you still have that video, please send it to me, because I want to see that video. So this is Alex with his story about seeing a ghost on a bridge.
All right, I'm sitting here at Danger Zone Video in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, and I got my first customer coming in. Hey, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm really excited to be here at Danger Zone Video. I want to shout out to Jesse and say thanks for setting this up. So go ahead and tell me your name, sir.
I'm Alex. I'm from Mount Juliet, Tennessee.
Alex from Mount Juliet, Tennessee. Okay, Alex, I understand you got a pretty good story to tell me something about a ghost on a bridge.
Yes, sir, I do.
All right, let's hear it. What's your story?
So I want to say it was back in June, and I was out. We had went to Florida to go and hang out with some family down there, and we were staying at Madeira Beach.
Okay.
As we were staying there, we were staying in an Airbnb and like just enjoying the scene. But me and my friend had asked my dad, and we were like, hey, we want to go and like take pictures because we have some like cool spots that we saw during the day.
Yeah.
And it was like, I want to say like 1:30 in the morning. And
wow.
He was like, I mean, yeah, I guess that's fine. Just be careful, you know, be safe.
That's a cool dad, 1:30 in the morning. Hey, I'm going to take some pictures. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, if it was anywhere else and we weren't on a vacation, he probably would have said no.
Yeah.
But since we were on vacation, he just kind of wanted to. He wanted us to be able to have fun.
Yeah, I get it.
Well, so we were walking around. We were out there for like an hour already, and this camera that we were using, it was a Nikon D3500. It had been taking perfect photos the entire night, and it started getting blurry. Like the photos just started getting blurry, and we weren't really sure why. So we switched over to his phone, and that started taking good photos. And then we tried turning the camera back on, and it was dead. So that was the first little bit, because it was like full battery beforehand.
Charge, huh? Okay.
And in an hour, when it typically lasts like 8, it was already dead.
Oh.
So that was like kind of already put us on edge. Well, we were sitting there taking photos, and he had his GoPro on because he was like, well, if a homeless person comes and jump us, we got it on video. We got a good video. Well, so he was sitting there taking photos of me, and I watched him like turn over to his side, like look behind him, and I was confused. And afterwards, he had told me, he was like, yeah, while I was sitting there, I felt somebody touch my shoulder, like tap me on the shoulder, and he was like, yeah, I was super confused because like I assumed it was like a cop or something, because we had seen a couple cops out that night.
Yeah.
And we assumed it was like a cop or something, but he didn't. I turned around and no one was there. Well, that started to freak us out. But we were like, all right, so let's just make it quick. Well, we walked over to this, I'm trying to think what it's called. It's the bridge that goes up and down. Drawbridge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were standing at the end of the drawbridge, and I'd like walked out into the middle of the road because it was like curved, and I was like, okay, well, this would be a good photo. and my friend Connor had pointed out, hey, there's a person on the bridge, like halfway up the bridge. And me not really caring, I was like, oh, okay, whatever. Like,
whatever. Yeah.
I mean, it's Florida. There's going to be people out.
Yeah.
Well, I'd walked over to him. We looked back over at this person. She was not super tall, like kind of short. She had a black hoodie on. She was like leaned over with her head looking at the ground and had like her hands in her pocket and was just like, she looked like she was just trying to keep to herself, not have anything happen. Well, we were sitting there and I walked back over to him and we looked back down at the camera to see if it would turn on.
Yeah.
It's dead.
The GoPro is dead.
The GoPro, the Nikon, they're both dead.
Dead. Wow.
So we look down, we're like, okay, they're dead. All right, well, I guess let's just go home. Well, we look up, she's gone.
Oh.
Like, nowhere to be seen. The only way she could have gotten down was by jumping. The nearest stair to her was at the other end of the bridge. She had no way to have gotten off unless either she killed herself that night or she just disappeared. And that freaked us out. So we ran back to the Airbnb and we were sitting there, like we told my dad, we told my sister, and they were like, well, look it up, see if anything's happened. I think it was about 2 years ago. One of the operators of the drawbridge was drunk on the job and opened up the drawbridge while a woman wearing a black hoodie, short, and killed her.
Wow.
She died that day.
Wow.
And of course, me and him started to freak out even more because, like, we both saw it. We had it on video, and I was like, this is the most insane thing ever. Like, there's no way we just saw a ghost. Well, we continued to look more into it, and I think her name was Carol. But when she had died, she was like getting chased by somebody. Somebody was trying to kill her on the video. Like, you see her running across the bridge and you see somebody run after her and then the drawbridge starts to open.
There's video of her death.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And you saw it.
Yeah, it was scarring, honestly.
And did it, what you saw on the video, did it look like what you, same person? And you got a good look at this person. You know it was a female for sure in a black hoodie. I mean,
yeah.
How close did you get to this person?
We didn't get that close. We were still on the other end of the bridge, but we could see her, long blonde hair, same person. We could see her black hoodie. We could see the same way she was like running because she was running with her head down and her hands in her pocket. And she was walking down the bridge toward us.
Toward you. Okay.
We looked down at our cameras, looked
back up, and she's gone.
Gone.
Was there lighting on the bridge that lit it up? I mean, could you?
Yeah, there was like light.
So you could see down to the other end. So there's no way, like, if it's at night and she's wearing a black hoodie and there's no lights, I could see she could walk off in the distance a little bit and you could lose sight of her. But you're saying that's not possible because there was lights.
There was lights, and we didn't look down for very long. It was like maybe 10 seconds.
Wow.
And even if that was a person that's somehow like on this like same description and everything, if she had jumped that night, we would have also heard the splash. You would have heard the splash,
exactly. Dang.
It was crazy.
That is crazy. That is. So are you into the paranormal? Do you watch like the paranormal TV shows and stuff like that? Listen to podcasts and
Yeah, there's two people that I watch, and it's mostly on YouTube.
Okay.
So there's TFIL, and then there's Sam and Colby. Sam and Colby, their whole career has been about going into abandoned places, exploring like different haunted stuff like that. And I've been watching them since I want to say I was 10.
Wow.
and I've always loved scary stuff, and I love the thought that there are ghosts.
There's something out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you weren't like that night. You knew nothing about the history of that bridge or that someone had died there. You weren't going out and say, hey, let's see if we can find a ghost. I mean, you weren't intentionally looking for something.
Not at all.
Okay. Because sometimes, if you're intentionally looking for something, your mind can play tricks on you, But the thing that I like about it is that you were with somebody, you have a witness, and you weren't out there saying, hey, let's look for a ghost, and you knew nothing about what had happened there. So that pretty much right there, I mean, that combined with the dead batteries that were full, I mean, that's a pretty legitimate, like, something weird happened there. So that's an amazing story.
We have her on video as well. Like I said, the GoPro, because the GoPro died after we looked down, because he took it off to see if he could look at the video. And when he tried to turn it on after it had turned off on his head.
You've seen this video?
Yeah, you can see her in the video. And then you look back down, and then we look up and start freaking out because she's gone.
Oh, snap. Man. Oh, too bad you didn't have the video of the afterlife when she disappeared. That would have been hella cool.
Well, yeah, you can't really... Because in the video, you look down, he looks down, and we look down at the camera, and then it turns off, and then we looked back up, and she was just gone. But on the video, you can see us look up, see the ghost, we look down at the camera, and then it dies, and then we look back up, and it happens.
That is so freaky. That's a great story. That is a wonderful story. I'm so glad that you came and told me that story, man. That's awesome. That is, yeah.
Yeah. So my grandfather and my grandmother, they're Christian, and they're very they're very open-minded about that kind of stuff. But their whole stance is like they want to believe that it's real, but they can't prove it.
Yeah.
Well, I had told them that story, and they were like, I don't remember exactly what they said, but they said something along the lines of, wow, we really should have gone to Florida with you guys.
For sure. Well, Alex, thanks for stopping by and telling me your story. I really appreciate it. And I don't know when I'm going to get this podcast episode put together, but I got your contact info. I'll be in touch with you, and I'll let you know when the episode's going to air.
100%. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Wow. Imagine that. Just going out for a stroll at night and then seeing the ghost of a woman who got killed on the bridge that you knew nothing about just not too long ago. I mean, that is, not only is that a wonderful story, but it is one of the spookiest stories. I mean, it was right out of the gate. He was the first person and came in with the spookiest story. Alex, that was an amazing story. I can't imagine what I would have felt like if I was out on that bridge and had seen who I thought was just a regular, normal, everyday person, and then just have them just disappear in the blink of an eye. And know that they didn't jump off the bridge. No splash. You didn't hear anything. And then to look up something on the internet and find out that not only did someone die there recently, but the person you saw fit the description of the person who recently died. That is freaky. Thanks, Alex, for that story. It's an amazing story. All right, next up we have Atticus. And Atticus is going to tell us a story about an encounter that he had with a Nagi at a Lakota Indian reservation in South Dakota back in 2015, I believe it was. Now, this is one of the more interesting stories that I had told to me that day at Danger Zone Video. And one of the first things that you're going to think about whenever he starts telling this story, he describes what he was seeing, is a skinwalker or a Wendigo. And of course, not everything is a skinwalker or a Wendigo when it comes to Native American culture, but that's one of the first things that you're going to think about. But I'm here to tell you, you need to listen to this story. It's a very interesting story. And afterwards, he and I had a conversation about what happened to him. We just kind of continued on with me kind of doing a little mini interview with him after the story was over with. So this comes in rather long at around 17 minutes, but I think it's really worth it to listen to in its entirety because this is a really, really great story. So here is Atticus with his encounter with a Nagi.
Hey, man, thanks for sitting down and telling me your story. What's your name, sir?
Atticus Taylor. Yeah, Atticus Taylor.
Atticus Taylor. Thanks, Atticus. I appreciate it. What's your story about? Can you tell us what your story? Where are you from? Are you from here in the Mount Juliet area?
I was born in Nashville.
Okay.
Moved to the Northeast for a little bit when I was younger, and then came back down here. But this is a story about what made me start believing in the paranormal.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to hear it. Tell me your story, sir.
Okay. Ignorance is the opposite of religion. This much I believe to be completely and utterly true. Throughout my life, I have played the devout believer, the cynic, the hedonist, and the evangelist, and with each role I found myself and my perception shifted slightly. Religion to the devout is warped with same-thing community. Religion to the cynic is manipulation and fraud. Religion to the hedonist is judgment and prejudice, while religion to the evangelist is direction and instruction. Religion is not something that can be put in a box and labeled in a way that makes every believer and skeptic content because it's ever-changing. You can't be content in something that's changing. Octavia Butler's protagonist, Lauren, in the parable of the sower, develops their own religious stance specifically in the belief that God is change, and that through our beliefs and understandings of the world, we are bound to each other and create the universe as the universe creates us. These beliefs are Lauren's ultimate truth, he applies me to others. In that end, it's easier for me to identify what I believe, or what I did. What I would define as my awakening experience occurred in 2015. At the time, I was a high schooler that thought he knew everything, and having been raised in an echo chamber of people with the same beliefs, possessed the pride and confidence that comes along with the knowledge you picked the right God. That August, I went on a mission trip through my church to the Pine Ridge Native Reservation in South Dakota. In retrospect, these trips raised some uncomfortable ethical questions that at the time I was blinded to by righteous motivation. Is the motivation of trips to aid a suffering people, or to convert them away from the faith of their family in order to provide better service directed to our God? As the vans carrying the 24 youth from our church made the hours-long drive to the reservation, the absolute lack of mountains or trees in the Midwest let us see in any direction for miles from the van's tinted windows. It was for this reason that those in my assigned vehicle were able to see the storm coming hours before it hit. The storm appeared as a dark smear on the horizon, growing ever larger, as if an especially talented landscape painter had caught his sleeves on his tools and pooled black ink upon his canvas. Hours later, we finally arrived at Sitting Bull High School, where we would be staying for the duration of the week. After unloading all of our gear and taking a brief break to stretch our legs, we all headed inside to attend the orientation program the organization hosting us had put together. The presentation went off reasonably well, barring the occasional scream from the audience when one of the girls spotted a mouse or a bat. As we set up our sleeping quarters that night, it was quickly discovered that several sleeping bags, mats, and pillows had gone missing and had likely been left behind by accident at the very start of the trip. This unfortunate oversight meant that myself and about 3 other kids had nothing more than thin rubber sleep pads to protect us from the concrete floors of the gymnasium's attached classroom.
Oh.
Which, due to the massive single-pane window in the wall and poor insulation, was already uncomfortably cold. Sore and exhausted from the 14-hour drive, I eventually fell asleep. I woke up with the sound of a thunderclap and hail 4 hours later, and the distinct feeling something wasn't right. A lightning strike illuminated the room again for the briefest moment, and I suddenly forgot how to breathe as my hair stood on end. In my room, not 10 feet away, was a figure around 7 foot tall, dressed in native hunter's garb, with the skull of a deer and cloven-hoofed feet. I desperately tried to roll over and go back to sleep in an attempt to chalk the experience up to sleep paralysis, but found myself frozen in place. I wanted to scream, to wake up the adults, but it seemed I'd forgotten how. I lay there in disbelief, clinging in desperation to the possibility I was only dreaming, but I abandoned that hope when lightning struck again. In that brief moment of illumination, I saw the figure in motion, stepping between backpacks and over the sleeping bodies of the rest of my party.
Oh, man.
The realization that this stranger was moving amongst the room shocked me out of my trance. I screamed, immediately awakening everyone from their slumber. The chaperones quickly turned on the lights and set about calming those who were startled awake by my outburst as one of them approached me to find out what happened, but even I was unsure. The thing I'd seen was gone. I did not believe in the supernatural. I was raised in the knowledge that God and his angels and Satan and his demons were very real, that witchcraft was the work of the devil, and that God enacted miracles through his most devoted on occasions, but that ghost schools, things that go bump in the night, and mystical or religious entities of other cultures were nothing more than these stories. The inability to explain what I saw that night followed me for the rest of the week and affected my ability to do work. As a result, toward the end of my time on the reservation, I found myself primarily assigned to light jobs, such as working in the school library, processing donated books with my friend Drew, who had unofficially been tasked with keeping an eye on me. It was there that I finally relayed to Drew what I'd seen a few nights prior. Drew, to his merit, did not make me feel like a lunatic and did his best to help me rationalize what I saw. I'd all but chalked up the experience to an exhausted mind playing tricks on me when we were interrupted. The gentleman that approached us appeared to be in his mid-20s, and up until a moment prior, had been silently working on a laptop in the corner of the room. He was native, yet possessed an air of modernity that many of the people I had met that week lacked. He told us his name was John, and he'd been at college for the past 3 years working on a history degree and had returned home the week before we arrived. John's goal was to transcribe his people's culture and history, as the stories of his people were mostly relayed orally, so that others could easily learn of the Lakota Sioux's beliefs and struggles. I spent the next hour answering John's questions as he eagerly took notes and answered my queries to the best of his ability. He told me that I'd encountered a Nagi, a spirit that never had a mortal anchor to our world, but is connected to all other living things that have been gifted life. The Nagi are beings that are drawn to emotion, positive or negative, and vary in what sustains them. John told me that Nagi were recorded in the journals of the United States soldiers during the Trail of Tears as freakish animals encountered right before a wagon broke down or supplies went missing, drawn to the suffering of the Sioux. The Nagi aren't inherently malevolent, but certainly can be, he told me. They can be problematic or protective of our people, mischievous or helpful. They're tied to the land and to us through life itself. My life changed in that hour. Each new thing he told me about his people and their culture wore away at the rigid walls they set around my faith as the right one. The longer John spoke, the more things clicked. How the spirits of the land are tied to storms, and how the Nagi in particular are connected to freakish weather and small rodents, such as the bats and mice we had encountered in the last week, and the storm that heralded our arrival. These things cemented in my mind that encounter was not a hallucination, but a brush with the unknown. I traveled to South Dakota with the belief that I would be helping people find religion, my religion, the correct religion, and left realizing that religion is much more complex. Belief isn't mutually exclusive. I still believe in the Abrahamic God and Christ, but I also now know the world is too complicated to capture in a single culture and belief system. To reject the beliefs and experiences of others because they don't fit within your selected paradigm is ignorant. Ignorance is the enemy of growth, and I may not know myself well enough to be able to strictly define religion, but I'm comfortable in stating that religion is growth. Religion is community. Religion is the interconnectedness of people of varying backgrounds and demographics in spite of difference of belief. Religion isn't determined by opinion and is unaffected by whether or not someone believes in it. Religion exists in spite of denial and ignorance. Religion is what's real.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was an interesting story.
Yeah, no, that whole essay was written as a final project for a theology class I had to take in college, and the professor had a unique reaction, but gave me a passing grade nonetheless. But that was definitely most people have ghost stories, I think, or like some sort of cryptic encounter. But it was odd. I went on the trip, with the whole general evangelistic. I got to go tell people about things connected to my church, and then I figured I was just exhausted. I was on some anxiety medication at the time, and thought maybe that long of a drive and not getting my sleeping bag and all this stuff probably wore down on me to enough that when I was woken by that lightning, maybe I was just having some sort of exhaustive hallucination or like sleep paralysis. And then John in the library, I'm trying to remember his name. His last name was something Lakota, and I don't want to butcher it. Yeah. But when I was just doing my job in the library and talking to Drew, and he'd like interrupted and started asking eager questions, it definitely made my hair go on end.
Well, I've definitely heard of the Nagi.
Yeah.
In some of my research and stuff. So, it does not. I agree with you. I don't think it was sleep paralysis. Mm-hmm. That's something totally different from what you experienced, in my opinion. Did you have like after that initial sighting, did anything weird happen again while you were there?
Well, I heard stories from a couple of people. What really kind of caught me off guard initially was, I gave a brief description in this essay that I wrote, but it was like a tall, kind of gaunt gentleman. It wasn't some sort of like, creature exclusively. It was like a native man wearing like a skull as like a headpiece or something, and had different ornamentation, but seemed to have like cloven feet. But following that encounter, there were a few other things that I heard about. I think what really kind of shook me from my sleep, like I was saying, and just the thought that this was some weird hallucination was, that first scratch of lightning, it was, illuminated. But the second one was when I was right against the window. There was it was the window, my friend Drew, and then me, and so this thing was in front of the window, taking up most of the window. And keep in mind, this is like a 7-foot window, like a 3.5 feet off the floor, if not 4. So it's
a large window.
Yeah. And to be fair, I'm on the floor, but it was still covering most of it. And as I was looking that direction, what shocked me was it was next to the window, and then when it struck again, there was a hoof like right in front of my face. Like I wasn't able to see Drew all the way. My line of sight was interrupted by this thing in front of me. And I heard from other people on that trip, not anything. I think the other thing that kind of caught my attention was they would, like I said, it's one of those things that looking back, the ethical elements were definitely not. I feel kind of ashamed of our purpose out there looking back, because it was very much one of those. The chieftain was a really sweet man, but was under the impression that we had a shared belief system of belief in the earth and all the. It was definitely the Abrahamic faith was definitely framed in a way that made it sound like it was the same thing. Yeah. And so he was welcome to have us there, because we were going around like in our vans with hey, come to the school, we'll have some fun times, have some snacks, but also teach them about our religion. But it was kind of interesting, because when we got there, first off, they were incredibly under supported. The lack of support for Native Americans is repulsive.
Yes.
And we went out there because there was, I believe, 17 suicides in the span of a year at that high school.
Oh, wow.
It was really bad. It actually got covered on the news. I'll put a pin in that for right now. But when we went out there, there were some people who weren't able to get access to water in the winter because it gets cold in the Midwest. And so a couple people died and got complicated medical issues driving from that because the pipes would freeze, water would explode. And so we would go out there, and we were basically, another incentive for them to have us there was we were fixing up homes. We were providing the expansive kind of plastic piping that doesn't when it gets cold it won't explode, it just kind of shrinks and expands. And we were fixing up their homes. But
did anyone else see anything?
Yes, sorry, to come back to where I was at. We were picking people up, and a lot of the kids, when they got back to the place, it was very depressing because all they wanted to do was talk about Markiplier and YouTube and stuff. You got the idea that these children felt confined in this cultural space and no real way to escape. But when we were picking the kids up, there was an instance I heard of they just drive around, say, who wants to come to the school and have some fun. And they were picking kids up, and it was a mostly full van. And they were driving back to the school, and one of the kids from my church said that there was another child on the road, and they were like, "Oh, we should stop and pick that one up." And one of the kids went, "No." They were like, just keep driving. Like, what do you mean? He goes, "Just keep driving." And we got to the school, and he was like, that was like, he's not around anymore. We're like, what? And then he verbalized that this was one of the kids who committed suicide.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, yeah, occasionally.
That's freaky.
Yeah, he was like, he didn't get into it. Like, he straight up kind of like how a lot of natives don't like their picture being taken because it's the idea of like speaking of the negative will draw it to you. But there were some stories I heard from one of the people working there that said that when they first got there, they had one of the members of like the administration running it turned around and went back home because they said that on the way in they saw a lady in a dress, like kind of an 80s outfit on the side of the road, and when they stopped to see how they were doing, they like raised their hand to wave, but they waved the wrong direction, like their elbow bent the opposite way. So they went to wave, but like the it wasn't, you know, it was still along that vertical axis but the wrong direction, so it was like weird. So, and the all the suicides that happened before we got there.
Yeah, you imagine there has to be some residual something from that.
Yeah, no, it was crazy because it was like 2017. I think I had it written.
You said it was
2015, and so that was the peak of like the online kind of like, you know, Slender Man crazy kind of creepypasta.
Yeah,
and everyone was like, "Oh, he's real." It's like, no, it started off as a photo editing contest. Like, you know, that was fun. But there's a news article I think you can still find if you Google like native Slender Man or whatever. It was one of those clickbaity things where it was talking about the suicides, and they're like, "Oh, Slender Man's connected," and all this stuff, and I'm like, that's awful. But we got there, and there's actually a I forget exactly what it's called. I think that Tall Sam is like the term.
Okay,
I'll Google it real quick. But there is a spirit of anxiety and depression that's believed to exist by some native people. It's called Walking Sam.
Walking Sam. Okay, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, so it's a 7-foot tall specter whose job is believed to collect the souls of the dead. It saunters along between the anxious and depressed, is like the little blub I just got there. But there was apparently like when those kids kept killing themselves, one of like the blamed entity by the Lakota people was Sam.
Yeah.
And so of course the, you know, Western our media picked it up and was like, "Ooh, tall gaunt spirit. This is clearly something,
Slender Man." Yeah,
we can get an article out of this. Yeah. But I tried to talk to them a little bit about it. They just like clammed up. They're like, "We're here to help, to tidy things up. We're not going to be talking about any of that stuff." But it was. There was a lot of stuff.
That's a lot to take in. Yeah. Well, Atticus, thank you very much for telling me your story. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you so much.
And, you know, one of the things that legitimizes that story for me is the fact that he was on a Lakota Native American Indian reservation. The Nakota are a Native American tribe that are part of the Great Sioux Nation, along with the Eastern Dakota and the Western Dakota tribes. And they're also known as the Teton Sioux, and their lands are in North and South Dakota. And that's where Atticus was right in South Dakota. The Lakota are known for their hunting skills and their warrior culture. They were one of the last tribes to settle on a reservation, as a matter of fact. They fought the United States Army in the Sioux Wars, including the Battle of Little Bighorn, where they defeated the 7th Cavalry Regiment. And as a matter of fact, the Lakota continue up to this very day to fight for their treaty rights. A lot of people don't know this, but the Crazy Horse Memorial, this is a well-known memorial, and it is to a Lakota Sioux warrior. There's a state park called Bear Butte State Park that is also a significant landmark for Lakota spirituality. So Atticus was right there in the middle of the Sioux Nation where he could have experienced this Nagi. And Nagi are spirits that are connected to the Creator's gifts to life, like animals, humans, and the elements. They're unable to show themselves because they weren't given a physical form by the Creator. And as a result of this, some Nagi take the form of an animal, an elemental figure, or even a human-like figure. Now, they can be benevolent or malevolent depending on the emotions that sustain them. For example, spirits that are evil are often attracted to humans who are angry, sad, are full of revenge, and spirits that are good are often attracted to humans who are joyful, loving, or harmonious. So, his encounter could have been one of these Nagi, and it sounds to me like that is spot on. Atticus, thank you so much for telling us about your encounter. Anything that has to do with Native Americans, to me, especially a story such as this, it hits close to home because my wife is a Native American, and I don't have, as far as I know, any Native American lineage in my history, but because I'm married to a Native American rights are very important to me. Their history and their culture is very important to me, and I think we need to preserve this. After all, they're called Native Americans because they were here before we were, right? So it's very important to me that we preserve all of the stories about Native American culture with all tribes, whether good, bad, or in between. And of course, I'm especially interested in the spooky and supernatural side of it. So once again, very interesting story, Atticus. I really think you did encounter a Nagi out there. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Next up, we have AJ. And AJ is going to tell a story about, we just call it the Ghost of Eastwood Hill. This is another great story that I got from Danger Zone Video. So next up is AJ's story. If it'll play. There we go.
All right, I got another taker here for the stories. Can you tell me what your name is?
My name's AJ.
AJ, where are you from?
Originally from Austin, Texas, which this is where these stories take place, but I live here in Nashville now.
Okay, great. So I understand you have a couple of ghost stories.
Yes, I do. They're not my stories. They belong to an old theater teacher of mine, but he used to tell them to us around Halloween every year, so they kind of belong to our little community now.
Great. Well, tell me the stories. I can't wait to hear them.
So, my old theater teacher, his name's Rick. He is originally from rural Texas, and about 10 years ago now wanted to kind of move back out to a place like where he was from. He wanted a space to, be able to do some of his educational work and his director's workshops that he was planning. And so he bought this old property called Eastwood Hill out in rural Texas, kind of near San Marcos. And he restored the whole house. It was an old 1850s Victorian farmhouse. And he restored the house, turned it into a bed and breakfast, started, bringing family and teachers there to do workshops and that kind of thing. And over the course of the restoration, sort of discovered that there may be ghosts still living in this old house. So there are two main stories that he's told me. The first is the story of the little purple girl. So when he was first restoring the house, he would bring family out there every once in a while. And one of the people he brought was his grandniece, who was, I think, 3 or 4 years old at the time. Little kid, running around, finding things to play with. But one day she was just sitting sort of very still, kind of quizzically looking up the stairs. And Rick said, "What do you see?" And she says, "There's a little purple girl on the stairs. Do you see her?" And Rick said, "No, I don't." And the grandniece said, "Well, she's there, and she gave me this." And she holds up a marble. Rick didn't recognize the marble. It wasn't something that he had seen in the house before. Didn't think the kid had brought it with her. Wasn't sure, just holding this marble. And so Rick did some digging into the history of the house, and the same family had lived there for about a century, really, the Eastwoods. And in its early history, the property had unfortunately been a plantation, and there were some enslaved families living there. And so his theory is that the kid saw this ghost with a sort of darker complexion, and in her kid language couldn't really understand what it was. Interpreted it as a little purple girl.
So like a child of a slave or something like
possibly,
that. Possibly,
yes. But, Rick kept an eye out for things and noticed, things would occasionally go missing, little trinkets, jewelry, shiny things like that, and sometimes would find a marble in their place.
Wow.
This kid roaming around the house, finding things that she thought were interesting and leaving the marbles behind. And this all came to a head when one night Rick was sleeping there and heard this crash and runs out to the living room, is like, "What's going on?" and sees the chandelier in the room sort of hanging by a thread from the ceiling. It had like cracked and partially broken off the ceiling, and there was a hole in the ceiling. And right underneath the hole,
a marble.
Wow.
Where are the marbles coming from?
We don't know.
Where's this ghost getting the marbles?
My sister actually has one. Both of us took classes from the same teacher, and she somehow got a marble from the property. But
wow.
Yeah, so that's the first story. The second story is a friend of Rick's, Jason, was there for some teaching workshops, and they tend to do like weekend, overnight things. So, you know, there are lots of bedrooms in this old house. So Jason was sleeping there on the property and, you know, wakes up after his first night there and sees the floor's kind of wet. Something's a little weird. And so he asks Rick about it, and he's like, oh yeah, ectoplasm. And Jason's like, what? And Rick says, I you know, got someone who's like an expert to come out here at one point. It's ectoplasm. Don't worry about it. So Jason says, okay. And, you know, is there for the second night and goes back to sleep. Wakes up that night with a little bit of like sleep paralysis. He can't really move, and he sees this woman standing over his bed. And she just asks him over and over, do you have any matches? Do you have any matches?
That sounds like sleep paralysis to me.
Maybe.
But
maybe.
Well, so can't prove it, but.
Yeah, but Jason wakes up the next morning, is suitably freaked out by all of this, and asks Rick about it, and Rick tells him that at one point there was an old woman in the Eastwood family who was still living there after the kids had moved out, and she was basically the only person there. And as the story goes, it was the dead of winter, and she was there alone, and she went out to go get water from the well, and she slipped on the ice and like broke a hip or something and died out there and froze to death. Which is why she was asking for matches or for something to warm herself up. So Jason never slept there again. He was like, all right.
I'm done. Yeah.
I'm done with this. Absolutely not. So, you know, there's some, I guess you'd call them benign hauntings at Eastwood Hill. Nothing that would really spook somebody unless you're Jason and have a low tolerance for the supernatural.
Yeah, nothing really scary, but yeah, there's something there.
But there's a good number of people who have marbles of unexplained origin that might have been left by the little purple girl.
That is cool. And you've got one.
My sister has
Your sister has it?
Yeah. One of these days I'm going to go back and get one for myself.
Now has your sister said anything, like any freaky stuff has started happening to her since she took possession of this marble?
I don't think so. I don't recall any particular story she's told me or anything, but I think she's been out there a few times and I've only been once, so I didn't have much of an opportunity to see anything firsthand. So
what about her? Did she see anything?
I don't know. I don't know actually, but apparently people who have stayed there have seen things when they've been there like overnight and stuff. So it was kind of a fun Halloween tradition in our classes, as he would turn the lights out, tell his ghost stories.
The stories of the ghosts of Eastwood Hill.
Yeah, from his old B&B out in Texas.
Nice. Well, thanks, AJ, for telling me your story. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Thanks, AJ, like I said, for telling me your story. That was a cool story. If you ever make it back to Eastwood Hill to get a marble of your own, if you could do me a favor and pick up one for me, that would be much appreciated. Well, it's been a minute since I've taken the old break to try to pay the bills, so I can't think of a better time than now to pay some bills. So here we go. Listen to this, and I'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kann du noch?
If you've heard that sound from Babbel before, I bet you do. Babbel is the science-backed language learning app that actually works. With quick 10-minute lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts, Babbel gets you on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. With over 16 million subscriptions sold and a 20-day money-back guarantee, just start speaking another language with Babbel. Right now, up to 55% off your Babbel subscription at babbel.com/Spotify podcast. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify podcast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
All right, I got two more stories for you guys. They're going to run a little long tonight, but that's okay. It's my podcast. I can do what I want, right? Next up, we have Brittany's story. Now, this is another really, really freaky story. We call it the York Road Stranger. This is something that happened to, I believe, her and a friend. Extremely freaky. I don't know how I would take it if I were her and had been her age when this happened, I don't know what I would have done. I'm quite sure I would have been scared out of my wits. So here is Brittany with her story.
Okay, I've got Brittany here ready to tell me a story. Brittany, thanks for coming in. Where are you from? Are you from from the area?
I am. I'm from Clarksville, Tennessee.
About 50 miles like north.
Yeah.
Great.
Went to school there, but grew up about 15 minutes outside of Clarksville where this story happened.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me your story. I'm anxious to hear it.
So one night in high school, I was sleeping over at a friend's house, and there's 4 teenage girls. And in the middle of the night, we're bored. We're looking for something to do. Mm-hmm. Just shenanigans.
Yeah.
It's the middle of the night. We tell my friend's parents, like, hey, we're going to go walk up to the gas station. And they're just like, whatever, y'all. You know how parents were back, back in the day. So we walk up to the gas station. We wanted to get some snacks for movie night. And the gas station, the walk was going to take maybe about 30 minutes there, 30 minutes back.
Oh,
so
wow.
Not, seems kind of far for
bunch of girls at 10 o'clock at night. Yeah.
But what else is there to do? We can't drive, so
yeah.
So on our way to the gas station, we stop at this road sign that's like a tractor crossing sign, and we start messing with it, see if we can pull it out of the ground because we're hooligans and just being ridiculous.
Yeah.
And we're like not paying attention of what's behind us or like if cars coming or anything. We're just like, oh, I wonder if we can like get this sign out of the ground. We can't. There's no way. Like we're shaking it, we're hitting it. It's ridiculous. I don't even know why we were even trying. I don't know where we were gonna put the sign when we got to the gas station or when we got back to my friend's house. But we had our backs all turned. And then all of a sudden we hear someone say, do you guys want to go to a party? And then it was completely dark in the middle of the road. We turn around and there's this like figure standing behind us and we can't see his face. And he has this hood on and a black jacket and just his face was just black. Like it was empty. Nothing was there. And he also had a baseball bat.
Oh, no.
And at the end of the baseball bat, there was like a can or something aluminum on the end of it. I don't really understand what was happening with that, but he was dragging it like across like the road and it was making this awful sound.
Weird.
And then so we were completely freaked out and we're like, no, we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
We're going to keep walking. We're going to go up to this gas station. And so we start walking, but we're dumb girls. And instead of walking back to the direction of my friend's house, we walked the opposite way of safety.
Oh. Of course.
We're still going to go to the gas station.
Yeah.
So we're walking and we don't see him for a while. And we're just like, man, that was really weird. Like, what was that? Like, did you see like any features or were like, we're kind of talking about it. And then he starts following us. Like he literally comes out of nowhere.
Oh no.
And he's following us down the road.
That is creepy.
And then we start just running. Like the 4 of us just start running. And it's like in the horror movies where you're running and the person chasing you is walking, but they're still keeping up with you.
Still keeping pace. Yeah.
That's what was happening. And we're still like, what does this thing want? What is this thing? Wow. And he's just not saying anything. And then all of a sudden we decide we're going to jump in the bushes in front of this abandoned house because that makes all the sense in the world.
Sure.
So the 4 of us.
Add to the spookiness.
Yes, the 4 of us. We have yet made it to the gas station. It's it's far. So the 4 of us jump behind these bushes, and it's like hedges in front of the house. But then there's also like tree lines like in front of the road.
Okay.
So we're like kind of behind all of that. And we're sitting there for a while. It seems like we're sitting there for hours. It could have been like 3 minutes, And this we hear this thing talk again from the road, and he whispers, "You guys don't think I know where you are?" And we're like sitting there like, what are we going to do? What? And we can just hear like the bat or whatever it is like dragging across the road. And so we're freaking out.
No kidding.
And then the four of us are like, okay, do you think that we could take whatever this thing is?
Even jump him. Yeah.
Yeah. We're like, I don't know. Like, is it even real? Is it a person? Like, because there was nothing in his face. It was just a shadow. It was just empty black where his face should have been. So then we decide, all right, let's jump out of the bushes and see what happens. And we jump out of the bushes, and he was nowhere to be found. That, like, we started running back to my friend's house, but like he just disappeared. If he was just there in the road, because we heard him like talking to us, and then he disappeared completely. There was nowhere he could have been, because this is a very rural place.
Excuse me.
And we just ran back to the house, kept turning around, checking behind us, and never saw anything like that ever again.
So how long of a time was it from the time that you guys were, like, you heard him in the road, you were hiding in the bushes, and you said, okay, we're going to jump out? How long was it from that to the time you jumped out? Like,
honestly,
it wasn't like 5 minutes or anything, was it?
It felt like we were sitting in the bushes for about an hour. But he was on the other side of the road, like other side of the trees, just saying like, "You guys don't think I know where you are? Like, y'all are silly." And then our assumption was that he was still in the road, like when we were gonna jump out, And
then you jumped out, and he was just gone. So there wasn't enough time for him to have like walked away or anything like that.
No, not at all. That was the creepiest part, because we were ready to do whatever. Because we were like, we can't just sit here in these bushes all night.
And you're sure he didn't have like a, one of those black masks on like they sell at the Halloween stores,
That's a thing like we have discussed since like we were like 15. So like we're all in our, mid 30s now. And it's something that we still can't explain. And we ask each other like, okay, what do you think?
So you still talk about it.
We still talk about this story,
to this day.
Yes. And it's, and then you start reading about shadow people and stuff like that.
Yeah, but I've never heard of a shadow person with a ball
weapon
bat and a hoodie and that really like speaks. Usually shadow people are just like, they're just there.
They're not as
interactive.
Yes. Or physical, speaking and has a weapon and stuff like that, but it was just nothing there in his face. It was very strange.
Let me like no features, not blurry, just nothing, just blackness,
just like
inky
a
blackness, a void.
Yeah.
Wow. So let me ask you, maybe this might be a personal question.
Sure.
And if you don't want to answer it, just say none of your business or whatever. You're not gonna. But so you're 15 at this time. You're in your 30s now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're saying this was 15-ish years ago.
Right.
All right. So were any of you, or maybe you personally, into anything like the occult, or were you into like witchcraft or Wicca or anything like that? Was there anything like that was going on with you guys? Maybe somebody conjured up something accidentally with some sort of spell, or
personally, I have always kind of been into, witchcraft, Wicca, whatever you want to call it, spirituality. It falls under that umbrella of things. So I've always kind of been, into it, but my friends not so much.
But you hadn't done anything. You weren't like trying to practice a spell or nothing like that.
Not
you didn't
that night.
You didn't play like stupid games like light as a feather, stiff as a board, or break out the Ouija board, or do anything like.
Not that night.
Not that night. Okay. So there's nothing that you would have done
to conjure up
anything.
Not that I can remember.
Okay.
No, and not that night particularly. We're teenage girls. Of course, we don't play those silly games, but that night we were just bored and wanted to go to the gas
just wanted
station.
to go to the gas station. 30-minute walk away, 10 o'clock at night. What could happen?
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Did you tell any adults about it after the thing was over with?
That's the funny part. It's like thinking, like, we swore we would never tell our parents because we didn't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
You know, and thinking back, I'm like, no, we should have told them like way before we did. We didn't even tell them until we were like in our 20s. And they were just like, are you guys serious? And we're just like, yeah, no.
What if we tell you we'll never get to walk to the gas station at 10 o'clock at night again? Yeah.
I think that's what we were thinking of. We were thinking of like,
well, you know, it was a different time then though, right? I mean, you know, like today, if that happened to someone today who's 15 years old, the very first thing they're going to do is tell somebody. Right?
They're going to whip out their phones and go live on Instagram.
Exactly. Yeah, I got you on Facebook Live or whatever. You know, so I mean, it's just totally a completely different time.
Yeah, and so a little bit of backstory on that area. Me and my brother have seen some weird things. Honestly, just driving up and down those roads.
Huh?
We could have swore we saw a panther one time.
Alien big cat. Wow.
There's like now on some of the Facebook groups that we didn't have back then, people will post like, do you guys have this weird feeling when you're driving down this part of, Woodlawn or things like that? So it's very interesting in that perspective.
That road has just bad vibes. There's
There's
juju
a
on the
couple
road.
of places out there I feel like has some interesting.
Any like deaths on the road, like
energy.
from car accidents or anything that you know
there's
of?
a ton. Yeah, there's a ton. Yeah.
And this is in the Clarksville area.
It's Woodlawn, Tennessee, and it's about 10 minutes outside of Clarksville.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got some stories. I'm going to have to get you back on it. I want to hear the alien big cat story one time for sure.
It's not as exciting because it's one of those things where it's a short story. So it's, but we still can't, it's not something we can explain. And it's something that we swear up and down. And we're like, you saw that too, right? And it's like,
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. I'm going to get you back on. You're gonna, I don't care if it's 30 seconds. I'm going to get you back on. You're going to tell me that story. All right. Well, thanks for dropping by and telling me I don't even know what to call that. That is that's weird.
I know. It's the craziest thing that's ever happened to me, and the scariest I've ever been.
I would say that of the people that have dropped by here today, and I've had some good stories today, but this one is like the creepiest because this could have been anything.
Right.
This is yeah. Well, thanks for telling me your creepy story. I appreciate it. 15 years old, 10 o'clock at night, walking down a road that's known for weird activity, and then encountering what could have been a normal human, not a normal human being, but could have been a human being or some sort of entity that was basically stalking you. They had a baseball bat with a can on the end of it. Man, can you imagine how scared you would have been at 15 years old, especially being a female and experiencing that? That, like I said, does take the cake for the creepiest vibe story of the whole event. Man, I could not imagine it thinking back upon myself when I was 15 years old and I'm a guy, I can't imagine how scared and freaked out I would have been if me and my childhood friend that I had when I was 15 had something like that happen to us. And we did, a lot of stuff that 15-year-old kids shouldn't do, like most 15-year-old kids, right? But man, that was a great, freaky, just creepy vibe story. Thanks, Brittany, for sharing that. And I am serious. I do want to get you back on to tell me that alien big cat story. I don't care whether it's 30 seconds or not. Got to get you back on for that. All right, this brings us to the last story of the evening. This is actually Jesse, the owner of Danger Zone Video in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. This is his personal story about his night at the Stanley Hotel. Now, if you don't know
about the Stanley Hotel, I feel sorry for you. If you're listening, if you like to listen to shows like this and you've never heard of the Stanley Hotel or don't know what it is, then I don't know. There's no hope for you. You need to look it up. It is a very, very famously haunted hotel, famous for The Shining, which was shot there. Man, it's just, there's all kinds of stuff that is associated with the Stanley. And Jesse just so happened to be lucky enough to get to spend a little time there. So coming in with the last story of the evening, here is Jesse with his story about his stay at the Stanley Hotel.
All right, I am here with Jesse, who is the owner of Danger Zone Video and More here in Mount Juliet, and he has a story about the Stanley Hotel.
The Stanley Hotel.
Yeah. First of all, before you tell your story, I want to take just a second and say thank you very much for hosting this event. I really appreciate it. I've been having a great time. All these people coming in and telling the story, and maybe we can get back together and do it again sometime here in the future.
Yeah, no, this has been great. It's been fun for me because I've just been sitting in my little chair, kind of getting the preview episode. It's been a ton of fun. I'm so glad it's turned out to be successful. So thank you for doing it.
Thank you for hosting the event. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, man.
So what's your story about the Stanley? Because this the Stanley Hotel is on my bucket list that I would love to go there, but probably will never get the chance to. So
well, if you do get the chance, I highly recommend going.
Yeah.
It was gorgeous, and it was pretty unnerving for me. So Brittany and I stayed a night at the Stanley Hotel, and we did a not midnight, but we did a late night ghost tour. Our tour was just me, Brittany, and our tour guide, so it was a really small tour.
Oh, intimate, yeah.
But at the end, we met up with another group, and it was a larger group. We met up outside of the entrance to the employee tunnel. So we're all standing pretty close together. Then they take us in there, and we're all kind of standing around, getting the lore, getting the stories and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of smell something that I hadn't smelled from anyone else we had been around. It was like a different perfume.
Not like a fart or anything.
No,
Okay.
no flatulence.
Okay.
But it was just a perfume that I didn't smell from anyone the whole time we were with them.
Okay.
And I kind of made a face, and I guess the tour guide saw my face and was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, I smell a perfume that I haven't smelled since we've been with this group. And she was like, "Oh, that's probably one of the employees just passing through." Nobody else smelled it. Brittany didn't smell it. It was very strange. So I kind of just chalked that up to whatever, fine. I'm very open to this stuff, but I don't experience much.
Yeah.
So then we get back to our room, and it's winter. They've got the heat on, and the heat is definitely on. This is, I think, one of the few hotels still where you can open the windows.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, it's stuffy in here. I'm going to open this window, get some air flowing in here. And I made the joke, I can't wait for that window to slam shut in 30 minutes. Well, it did just that. I feel like it was pretty close to on the mark time-wise to 30 minutes.
Whoa.
I'm hop in the shower, taking a shower, and I hear a whistling noise, and I'm like, that's probably just the pipes, right? But it sounded just like someone whistling. I get out of the shower and I asked Brittany if she heard it. She didn't hear anything. And I'm like, okay, and I'm like, pipes, fine, whatever. So we go to bed. I slept horribly that night. I'm pretty sure I woke up every 30 minutes, every hour. You could see... Brittany can fact check me on this. I don't remember seeing a single child the whole time we were at the hotel. But every time I looked at the door, I would look at the door because I would hear it rattling, like somebody was standing on the other side shaking
trying to get in.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
And when I'd look at the door, when I'd hear that sound, you would see what almost looked like someone running back and forth, like a kid running back and forth.
Yeah, underneath the door. Yeah.
Kind of break up that light that you're seeing. Never saw a kid. The door was shaking the whole night. I maybe got 2 hours of sleep that night.
And she's sleeping like a rock over there.
I don't think
snoring.
I don't think she slept like a rock. I think I might have because I was up and down a lot. I wouldn't get up. I mean, I was scared. I'm not even gonna lie. I was scared. Little kids, creepy stuff like that. No, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'll deal with the pipes, the perfume, the window, all that. You start doing little kids running back and forth, and I haven't seen a kid. That's where I'm like, no, I'll stay in bed. But I'm telling her all this. And she didn't experience anything. Nothing. I got it all. The kids, the perfume, the window. Well, you saw the window. The whistling noise, it sounded exactly like somebody whistling on the on the other side of the shower curtain.
Ooh.
Oh, did you? Okay, so she did hear the rattling of the door.
Okay.
But yeah, never saw a single kid. There was how hotels will slide the invoice under the door or whatever.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. So nobody was sliding anything under the door. Doors shaking like crazy. All the light breakup of looking like someone was running back and forth. Just if you get the chance, you gotta go.
So why were you there? Were you there just to stay at the hotel? Or you a fan of The Shining?
Oh well, we do love The Shining. There's actually a pretty funny story to this. I guess it's not terribly funny, but in hindsight, we had some friends come to visit from Colorado, and for Christmas, I think Brittany had booked a room for all of us to stay at Opryland Hotel. Well, Brittany and I got COVID.
Nice.
So they stayed at the Opryland Hotel, and we did not. And then when we went to Colorado, they booked a room at the Stanley Hotel for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
They got COVID, so we went by ourselves. So it was just trading in and out on hotel
COVID.
experiences. Yeah.
So it wasn't like you weren't there specifically to have a paranormal experience or anything.
Nope.
You were just there, just
hanging out,
place to stay, hang out,
sightseeing.
That's when you have the best chance of having something weird happen to you, is when you're there totally to not experience that.
Yeah, and
that's when it's going to happen.
And that's exactly what it was. I don't even think it was on my radar of really experiencing anything. I was like, oh, this is a landmark for horror fans.
Yeah.
I love hotels in general, so it was cool to me. And then all this stuff is happening to me. Like I said, I'm open and I've experienced things before, but not so much in a single night.
Yeah.
That was insane. So nothing groundbreaking or crazy, but just all of those things happening in less than a 24-hour span was I was like, it's real,
Did you have feelings of being watched, or there's a presence in this room? You kind of can feel it feels like there's somebody standing around or whatever, or it feels like there's eyes on me. Did you have anything like that?
Probably just when I heard the whistling, because that's you're in the shower. That's when you're most vulnerable. I hear that whistling and I'm like, one, I know Brittany can't whistle. Sorry to throw you under the bus, but I know Brittany can't whistle, so I know that's not her. So who is either on the other side of this window, on the other side of this door, the other side of the shower curtain? Who's whistling? So that was about the only time where I felt like I was not alone. Well, in the kid thing, the door.
Do you know if the area or the room you're staying in, was it purported to be a haunted spot, a hot spot? Do you know that?
So it wasn't the room. It was. Our room was 237? Oh, okay. So we were on the. I forgot that we were on the same floor as the most haunted room.
Okay. I can't remember what, but it's a 240 or 230, 247, 237, something like that.
Something like that. So maybe there's just some residual hauntings on.
Yeah, well, if you were staying a few doors
217.
down, 217. Okay, I knew there was a 2 and a 7 in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So if you're just a few doors down, man, then who knows what's going on.
Yeah. Very creepy, very fun. Don't know if I need to go back, but I would if the opportunity presented itself. Yeah, a lot of crazy stuff happened at the Stanley Hotel.
Nice. Well, was that Brittany whistling?
I feel like someone's watching me now. I feel like someone's watching me. I know that wasn't her whistling.
Well, thanks, Jesse, for telling me your story. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for let me do this. This is cool.
Anytime.
Thank you, Jesse, not only for telling me your story about the Stanley Hotel, which is a pretty cool story. Very envious that you got to stay at the Stanley Hotel. But also thank you for letting me set up shop there in the lobby of your store there, Danger Zone Video, Mount Juliet, Tennessee. Like I said, if you guys are fans of physical media, you need to check out Danger Zone Video if you are in the Nashville, Lebanon, Mount Juliet, Hermitage area, anywhere in the Nashville area. Go on down to Danger Zone Video and more in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, and check out your physical media. Get your physical media fix. If you're not in the area, check him out on Instagram. He'll be happy to send you some stuff via mail, post. Man, we're going to do another one of these during the spring, so stay tuned, you guys, for some dates about that for some announcements coming down. Had a great time and met a lot of interesting people. There's a lot of people who came in that didn't want to tell their story, but kind of hung out and talked to me in between stuff. So hopefully I can convince some of those people to get on and tell me their stories as well. You know, sometimes people get a little shy and they want to talk to someone about it, but they don't necessarily want it shared publicly. So yeah, I get it, but hopefully some of you people who came down, the first one will come down on the second one. Man, I really ran overtime tonight, but that's okay. It's like I said, it's my podcast. I can do whatever I want to with it. If you'd like to leave a comment about tonight's episode of ParaReality, have an idea for a topic you'd like me to cover, or a story you'd like to tell, send me an email, sandman@parareality.com, or call the Secret Bunker at 615-692-1170 and leave me a message. Don't forget that by leaving me your message, you're giving me permission to play your comment back on the podcast. Also, don't forget to follow ParaReality on social media. You can find the podcast on Facebook by looking for sandman.parareality, or you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram under the username @ParaRealRadio. You can also find ParaReality on YouTube under the username ParaReality1. That's ParaReality with the number 1 out behind it. ParaReality.com is the home of the podcast on the web, and it's also where you can find paranormal news from all around the world in the Paranews section. And you can listen to past episodes in the archives section, all for the price of absolutely nothing. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can buy yourself some swag in the official ParaReality shop while you're there. You can also support the podcast for free by leaving me a 3-star or better review on whatever podcast app you're listening on. Your reviews help the podcast to grow and reach even more people, and I would appreciate it very much. I'd love to hear from you guys, so send me those emails. Thank you. Man, thank you once again to Jesse at Danger Zone Video. I really appreciate it. Shout out to you guys. You guys are the best. Everybody, that about does it for this evening. Thank you for listening. Unfortunately, it's time to shut her down. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's episode of ParaReality. The next episode is going to drop on Friday, February the 7th, 2025. At 8 o'clock p.m. Central U.S. time. So please tune in, and find out. I hope that this podcast opens up your mind to new ways of thinking, expands your consciousness, and produces a change in the way you see the world. If you wish to change, you must lift the veil of ignorance that has been cast over your eyes. Only then will you see the true power of the universe. I hope you have a great evening, great couple of weeks off. I'm not going to come back until the Friday, February 7th, so I'm taking a couple of weeks off. So have a good couple of weeks off, guys, and I will see you again later. Good night.
If you wish to change, you must first lift the veil of ignorance that has been cast over your eyes. Only then will you see the true power of the universe.
Hey, it's not over. Thanks for sticking around. I got something to tell you. Do you want to be a member of the Secret Sanctum? Well, if you do, there's only one way to do that. Somewhere on ParaReality.com is a link hidden in my website. And if you can find that link and click on it, you'll be granted access to the secret bunker, and you'll become a member of the Secret Sanctum. It's 100% free. It's not going to cost you anything. And once you become a member, you'll have access to some secret audio files and secret documents, some of which are exclusive only to ParaReality and the members of the Secret Sanctum. You'll also get a free ParaReality Secret Sanctum t-shirt. Just fill out the form and let me know what size you are, where you're located in your name, and I'll get that right out to you. So if you want to be a member of the ParaReality Secret Sanctum and have access to the secret bunker, find the link.